Here's a peek at what guests had to say after the show.
Okay, these are the questions that have been wired in from the people out there who are probably wired. Carl, on last night's 2.5 Men, it was clear you and the lovely Holland Taylor make beautiful music together. How about a spin-off?
You know something? Those wonderful sexual lines, I was the dirtiest old man I've ever been in my life. I'm not that kind of a dirty old... The writers wrote the best dirty jokes I've ever seen. I was wildly funny.
From a guy who had to keep Rob and Laura Petrie in separate beds. They couldn't even sleep in the same bed 50 years ago. Yeah. Your head must spin when you see the kind of jokes they do at 8 o'clock at night on broadcast TV.
I sit with Mel Brooks every night, and we said, "Do you believe he's the guy who farted in a movie and made every time he says, 'Look what they're doing,' I says, 'You started with the farting.'"
You're right. You're wrong.
Blazing saddles.
Okay, I asked you last year on Overtime why you wanted to keep the Patriot Act. You said you did not want to be called, this is for you, Representative Grayson, you did not want to be called unpatriotic. Knowing what you know now about the NSA, would you change your vote? Good question.
Well, even the people who wrote the Patriot Act and are responsible for it think that it's
Sensenbrenner.
Yes, right. Sensenbrenner it believes that it's gotten completely out of control. I mean, the Patriot Act is being used as an excuse for setting up a state where literally the Defense Department gets a record of every phone call that we make.
Right.
There's no threat to national security when I'm calling my mother.
Right.
I swear it. I swear it.
Part of the problem is, though, as we've discovered through what Snowden has revealed, is that we don't know even what we don't know. I mean, when we had another one of the documents, in addition to the domestic surveillance stuff, was just the budget of intelligence agencies, how much we're actually spending in broad categories that we had no idea before. They refused to give sort of a breakdown of the numbers of what we're spending money on.
And it doesn't make us any safer. It really doesn't. You know, they float this number out that they have somehow impeded 50+ terrorist activities, and they use all these buzzwords, impeded activities. It shows you that they're lying just by the words that they use. And then you drill down into it. Justin Amash, a Republican congressman, drilled into it and found that there was actually only one that they could even arguably claim was interfered with, and it wasn't even a terrorist attack.
It is the credo of spy agencies not to brag about their victories. The CIA, what? That's true. That's part of the problem when you're in the CIA. You never get the pat on the back, because it's not like a soldier where it's out front. I mean, you have to just do it for the love of your country.
Yes, but
it's very hard to know exactly what they're stopping and what they're not.
Yes, but Bill, that kind of thinking leads to a 10-year occupation of Iraq.
Yeah, I know. Well,
there are reasonable steps to take to keep us safe.
Right.
And then there's all that other stuff they're doing.
Right.
And we don't have to say, well, we can't be safe unless every piece of mail is photographed.
No.
Unless the Defense Department gets a record of every phone call that every American makes. That just doesn't make any sense.
Okay. Dr. Emanuel, every single Western country that consistently ranks higher than the U.S. in statistics from the World Health Organization has universal health coverage. And then it asks, how can Republicans deny such in-your-face evidence? Well, maybe this is more for you. But I mean, that is true. I think the UN ranks us 37th.
50th in life expectancy, 37th. I'm sorry to step on
and we pay the most.
Yes.
It does seem like
people wonder how we can pay so much and get so little.
Right. I mean, it seems like, you know, almost anything would be better than the system we have, where the $350 hip replacement costs 30 grand. Was all I was trying to get at before.
Yes, no, I do think, look, almost everyone who's involved in the healthcare system believes we can do better in terms of quality and we can save money. We do have to create the right incentives. And, you know, the Affordable Care Act went a long way towards that, but didn't solve every problem. But it certainly was better than what we had. And I don't think there's anyone who thinks what we had was defensible. It was high-priced, uneven quality, and I would say that the Republicans, and I put this out, never had a plan to improve the quality, insure everyone, and reduce the cost. They never had a credible alternative. So, you know, You may not like every part of the Affordable Care Act, but it gets us on the road, going up and improving, and that's the key. And, you know, most of us would also we'd like to make tweaks, we'd like to make adjustments, but given the toxic nature in Washington, even adjustments that both sides can agree to can't get enacted.
Okay, Matt, we're going to give you the last question and the last word because you deserve it coming here. Such hostile territory.
So many friends.
Look at that, look at that. An applause for you. See how nice liberals are?
He needs a Purple Heart.
What do you say to people like Paul Krugman who say that debt reduction is not nearly the crisis you say it is, and hasn't it been proven that austerity is actually bad for our economy?
I don't think wealth comes from Washington, and it certainly doesn't come from borrowing money that we don't have. It doesn't come from spending money that we don't
Sometimes
have.
wealth does come from borrowing money.
Right.
That is true. That's called the stock market.
It's called the private sector. It's different, though, because we now have $17 trillion in national debt, and we print money from the Federal Reserve to offset that. It distorts markets. It steals money literally out of people's pockets. And at some point, we got to get a decision-making again where we choose between guns and butter. After 2001, the Republicans and Democrats came up with this bipartisan collusion where the Republicans got all the guns they wanted and the Democrats got all the butter they wanted. And now we have $17 trillion in debt, and it falls on the next generation.
This is the thing, that the deficit's actually shrinking right now. It's shrinking faster than was expected. Healthcare costs are going down more than we thought. We made these cuts.
Yes,
you know, but in terms of
the debt's still going up.
no, of course, in the long term that is, but in terms of the trajectory of spending, it is going down far faster.
There were three
than we
things
thought.
that drove us into debt: the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the Bush-era tax cuts, and Part D, the Medicare drug payment, which was not financed. All of those under President Bush. President Clinton handed President Bush actually positive cash flow. We were actually not having deficits. We were going to retire the debt. And then he decided it would be better.
I think what Matt would say to that, if I could give you a little
Channel
leaf
him.
here,
Yeah, thank you.
is that's President Bush. That's why we started the Tea Party. I remember it was only a couple of years ago when I used to have Tea Party people. People from the Tea Lagoon. No, I'm kidding. Tea Party people on, and they would say, we're not Republicans. You can't tell us what party we're a part of. We're completely independent. We might be Democrats. Well, those days are over, aren't they? I mean, but there does seem to be a trend here, led by Mr. Ted Cruz, where the Tea Party people are happy to say, we are not Bush Republicans, and you old school Republicans can go fuck yourself. And that civil war is a looming. Oh, it's a coming. Oh, it's like it's like the beginning of Gone with the Wind, isn't it?
I think it's awesome.
You think what's awesome?
I think it's awesome. I think we are repopulating the Republican Party with people that actually stand for something. They said they were going to do something about the debt. They came here to do it. They said that they were going to balance the budget. They're actually trying to do it. We're driving right off a cliff right now, and nobody seems to care about the fact that we have so much debt. If you look at entitlements, you're talking about health care. You look, entitlements are consuming a larger and larger portion of the entire federal budget. It's crowding out all of your guys' favorite programs.
I agree with you. We need to be concerned about the long-term debt. But the best way to get your hands around the long-term debt is to fix the health care cost problem.
That was
Every
why they
expert
did
says
it first.
and that's why we did
I
Affordable Care Act.
That's why they did it first.
That's why we did the Affordable Care Act.
That whole dumb argument in the media about why didn't Obama do the economy first? That is the economy.
That's right.
Thank you very much, everybody. You were terrific. Thank you, Pat.
Real Time with Bill Maher, Friday night at 10. Ask Bill and his guests your questions right after the show at HBO.com.